Okay. I'll just move to before I just move to sports. I have one question. Do you know how they managed to pull down the AQI so considerably? Like, did they put economic sanctions on companies? Did they how did that happen? I mean, I know that
Yeah.
the tax on a car in Beijing is incredible, but
Yeah.
outside of that,
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was it wasn't just one thing. Like it was a coordinated response in a city like Beijing. For example, it's impossible to get a registration for a car. So car registrations are capped every month, and there's a lottery. So you have to apply. And I know people who've waited for years and they never got a registration. So they issue a fixed number of new car registrations every month, and only with that can you drive a car. So and then more than that, every day there's a restriction on license plates. So you can't take your car out one day a week, because they look at the last number of your license plate, and every day two digits are not allowed. So they limit traffic that way. And the other big thing they did, which really is kind of not a great solution, which was close down a lot of coal plants in the vicinity of Beijing and shift them inland. So they just shifted that problem to people in western interiors of China. But broadly, they have done a lot of cleaning up their coal plants, where the emission standards that they have for coal plants are much higher than they were 10 years ago. And you have to, and there they really regulate it in a tight way, where they monitor emissions from factories and make sure they're up to a degree. One thing that I think we can pay attention to in terms of the farmers' protests that are going on as well, what they did with crop burning was interesting. I visited, in the book, I talk about visiting a village outside of Beijing, and one thing that crop burning was a huge problem, stubble burning every winter. So what they did was they created this really organized campaign where they would try and the local authorities would buy the stubble off of farmers and then try and sell that to, I think they were trying to either use it for ethanol or something else. So they had this very coordinated campaign of buying the stubble from farmers, because you can't blame, I mean, here we get very infuriated at stubble burning, but oftentimes they have no way to
yeah,
dispose of
yeah.
the stalks of the crops. So I think it's a multi-pronged thing that they did.
Yeah, which is still funny because they still had a 10-day traffic jam in Beijing, despite having all this. So you can just imagine. And with the highways they have, I mean, despite that, they still had a
So
10-day
in the
traffic
book
jam.
itself, I think Anand, you mentioned it quite a lot about the 10-day jam, which sort of provoked them to start doing a lot more for everything else. And it's so interesting how odd even keeps popping up. The odd even system which Delhi had, it keeps popping up where it's like, and it was so interesting because I remember you saying this in the book where odd evens, they tried it, and then a few months later they discovered that the pollution was up because people were now buying two cars. And I was like,
Exactly right.
this is like, yeah.
No,
So
and that
always
happened.
crazy
And the
about.
interesting thing is, they found that I interviewed one of the researchers, and so she was telling me this, and she said that that's why they recommended the government to abandon it, because they found that they looked at many cities around the world that tried and failed, like
Yeah.
Mexico City. The same thing happened, where second car purchases were going through the roof the minute they put this in. So yeah, so I don't know. I think in India, Delhi kind of, I think, became kind of like a gimmick to say that we're doing this, that, and the other, but without like a very strong policy rationale behind it.
But in Delhi, every family anyway already owns more than
There you
one
go.
car.
Yeah.
So as a result, I mean, the chances of you
Yeah.
having that
Yeah.
Yeah, because
thing,
they
and
need
it,
another car to bang into, right? So they need to create that scenario.
just
Dude,
dinky
imagine.
cars in the garage.
They're like, "अरे, आज किसी को नहीं ठोका यार, किसी तू कर लेना अच्छा अच्छा." But by the you know what I find this thing is that usually the license plate is like given by the government. So imagine you bought a second car and that's also odd. Then you're back to playing numbers, like trying to figure out the probability of getting even. Okay, I got to tell
No,
one.
but I know people
Huh,
I know this in Delhi. This is a fact, okay?
huh.
For people who had a single car and they had an odd number, they have created a sticker. So if they had a 9, they have created a like a C ka sticker.
Nice.
So they can just put it on the 9 so it becomes an 8.
Nice.
At the bottom corner of the 9 to make it an 8, and then they drive. So they've changed their car number, which is not
Yeah.
only jugad but also illegal.
It's highly illegal.
That's so funny, because my landlord in Beijing, I remember one day I came downstairs to the apartment building, and I saw him because I didn't have a car, so he would park in the slot. And I saw that he was taking mud and putting it on his license plate. And then I asked him, "What are you doing?" And then it turns out that he was, because it's based on the last digit, he was like coating the last digit of his license plate with mud, which is so I think it's like a universal thing that.
Wow.
Yeah, but at least mud sounds like probable that it was blurred out. Like when you're consciously going out there and putting that C, that makes it like immediately mud. You can say, hey, it happened to be in such a coincidental place where the mud went only on that one digit. Very, very well pointed mud it was.